Welcome to Limbwalkers podcast from the WJOB studios on the campus of Purdue Northwest in Hammond, Indiana. Now here's your host, Will Glaros.
Welcome to Limbwalkers podcast. Here we are recording this in August of 2025. It is basically showcasing a man that has done a lot of different things, made a lot of different mistakes, and done some really cool things in his life, and that is Will Glaros. Will, thanks for coming in.
You bet, Jimmy. Nice to see you again.
He's a graduate of Munster High School, so am I, and there's another guy out there that we all three of us played football in the Munster system, and I could tell you met AJ Preboy, who was the quarterback just a couple of years ago, and now he's doing marketing here for us. And you know what I noticed about these guys? They come in here. Look at this guy working here, Jaime Velasquez, and look at Lynette, our producer, and then Adriana Alvarez is out there, and then AJ Preboy. They don't screw around. They just want to do their job and learn. They want to learn their jobs and stuff, and they don't realize that I'm here to screw around. So can we screw around today a little bit? They won't screw. Literally, they're like, we have a mission here, and we're trying to learn. We're trying to promote the WJOB Sports Network, and you're just screwing around. It's a generational thing.
I like screwing around every once in a while. Things get too serious out there.
We had media day last night.
Ooh.
We had all of the coaches come in. And then they brought two players for the football of the Northwest Crossroads Conference. It's Hobart, Highland, Munster, Lowell, KV, that kind of thing. And everybody came in, and the coaches were here. And I know all these coaches. I'm like starting to talk to them. Hey, what's going on? How you been? And then they have their, two best players.
Yeah.
And they bring two that they've chosen, and we interview them, and we use it for the Times was here, and Prep Sports USA, and some other people. After about a half hour, my guys came to me and said, "You need to leave." And I'm like, "Well, what do you mean I need to leave?" They said, "We have this scheduled for 8 teams, and we go every 15 minutes, and it's on a schedule. This has to move, and you're talking to everybody. You got to get out of here." So I had ridden my bike over. I mean, it's kind of I think I'm screwing around with the coaches, and Bartolomeo and Skinner, these guys are in, and we're just talking to them. Robinson, St. Louis at Munster, and they're like, "No, this is business, man. Everything's all business."
And you're the one that's normally doing that kind of stuff.
Exactly. And, 10 years ago, maybe I would have been all business, but, here I am, just the guy that kind of hangs out. I wanted to do, we have some things that we need to get done on this podcast, but ultimately I'm like, why don't we just wildcat this one, and let's just talk about things that are going on in our lives and how that might apply to other people's what they're doing. But just to remind everybody, it's called the Limbwalkers podcast. Why?
It's called Limbwalkers because we want to illustrate to people that we all of us, doesn't matter who you are, if you're looking at it from an analysis standpoint, we're all standing at the core and the hub of the tree, of a tree of our life. And each and every one of us has an opportunity to decide whether or not they want to venture out on that limb. Because with that venturing, as the old statement goes, if one never ventures out on the limb, one will never taste the fruit. If you don't care about that, then fine, hug the tree. But if you really want to experience some things that are different, challenging, make you feel good, sometimes hurt, you've got to walk out on that limb, and you've got to test your weight and how you've progressed to get to where you are. So be aggressive, get out on the limb. But if you don't, that's not bad either. Each and every one of us are different.
A lot of what we talk about is risk in your life, and putting yourself out on the limb is that. I think that I didn't realize that when Will started this. I'm like, I consider myself just unlimited risk I will take, and that I will have lost all. I was a trader at the Board of Trade in the pits, and of course lost all my money twice just because I didn't understand the limits of risk. But I went this week to an innovation conference about how to run a startup as a founder and that kind of thing, but it was held at one of the live golf tournaments. Have you followed this at all?
Just a little bit. I like the traditional old PGA approach to it.
So do I, but Liv came along, and there's actually a whole movie out right now, Happy Gilmore 2.
Oh, yeah.
And they're just basically making fun of Liv and all of the new innovations. You go to the Liv tournament, they don't have starting times. Everybody starts at the same time. They have teams. There's 4-person teams. They have a playground for little kids on the course, and it was a massive playground right next to the 18th tee, and you just got to put up with some kid screaming in your backswing, and that's how it is. Certainly all of it is televised, and they would have you could follow one person or you could follow just the main broadcast, but I wanted to see that. I run the digital sports streaming network, and I wanted to see how they did it, and it was an amazing experience. I'm a golfer, as you are, and a traditional golfer a lot of times, but I do Jed golf, which is one stick, one club, and 2 balls, and I've been doing it for 25, 30 years, and I've always thought that golf in and of itself was way too boring, and there was reason that all the playing numbers are going down, that young people weren't coming to it. Yeah. Now Liv is in there, and they've invested a ton of money. It was kind of a little bit gaudy on these temporary structures that they had built, and I could see how the old guard would, like you and others, would be against it. I could not have embraced it more, but really what they're doing is they're walking out on the limb, they're trying new things, and some of them are just that. They got a whole movie made about them, making fun of Liv and putting the little transistor or cutting a ligament in they cut a ligament in people's hips so they could drive the ball farther. And they're the bad guys versus the old PGA guys. But they're doing that. They're doing exactly what you're talking about, stepping out on the limb. Yet here you are, looking askance at this process. So you're kind of on both sides of the risk and the limb walking issue. Do you understand that?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's your personal view on everything. You look at something and say, I like that or I don't like it, and certainly I'm jilted by the fact, and for years we all have been part of the traditional methodology of golf. The crazy part is traditional golf began to make a comeback when COVID hit, because people had nothing to do, and they started watching again. And to my understanding, all golf has been elevated to a new level. But you're right, it's traditional golf rather than kind of fun, and we don't like change like that. And I guess I have to admit that in certain areas I have a view of the pristine past, and I don't want it to change. I'm not opposed to it happening. I just don't make my own personal decision to watch Liv versus watching PGA.
Do you know how many courses I've been thrown off of? Because here's what
you were wearing?
I do have, like, my granddaughter says fuzzy grandpa, because I'm like the hairiest dude in the region.
I've got none, man. I've got absolutely no hair on there. I could have a transplant from you and you wouldn't even miss it.
So, yes, I have the shorts on today, and that was one of the things you could do at Liv, they let you wear shorts, and all of I was sitting there right there, and Sergio Garcia was there, and John Rahm, and Charles Howell III, and I didn't realize that Bubba Watson was so skinny. But anyways, they were right there, and you could mingle with them and stuff as part of the conference. It was the coolest thing, but the way I get thrown off of courses is I really don't want to go out and spend 5 hours with 3 other dudes playing golf and saying the same, hey, get in the hole! No, that kind of stupid stuff.
I hate that comment.
Yeah.
Especially when the guy's just finishing his swing. That's
any of the traditional golf stuff. I like that people go in order and that you follow the golf etiquettes on the greens and stuff. But I was 30 years ago, I picked up one club, And I just said, well, why don't I live right by a public course, Wicker Park?
Sure.
And then I would go out right before sunset, and I'd just play with a 7-iron, and I'd play the whole course. I'd run it in about, I'd run 9 holes in about 35 minutes. So I'd usually play the whole course in about an hour and 10 minutes running it. Now I more walk it briskly with 1 club, 2 balls, and if you lose,
this is when you play by yourself.
Yeah, and then I got other people playing. It's always a 7-iron.
Do you know what I heard? A pro told me if they were told they had to play an entire golf course with 1 club, it would be the 6.
Yeah, the 6-iron is probably more distance.
Yeah.
But since I'm playing at nighttime or right before sunset,
you don't want it to go too far.
Yeah, I don't want it to go too far. I want it to go about 150 yards, and I used to hit an 8-iron 150. Now I hit my 7-iron about 150, 155. So I do that, but you also limit the number of balls. You can only take 2 balls, so you can't. Sometimes you got to play up in front of a little creek, or if there's a lake along the left side, you got to hit a little bit further to the right. If you only have 1 ball left, you know what I mean. So you're limited by balls, and if you lose both balls, you got to walk in and the game's over.
It's kind of fun. I'd like to do it once. It is very
fun. No, I've had a number of people that come out, and it gets even better. I hit my 7-iron. That's all I do. So when I go play with guys, I only play like 5 full rounds a year. I can't hit my driver very well or my wedge. But my 7-iron. So what I did is I did Bryson DeChambeau, and I was going to tell him that if I saw him at the Live Golf Tournament, I was going to say, hey, listen, I just got to tell you that I did what you did. He's, I think, one of the main guys, one of the only main guys that plays all of his clubs at the same length. So what I did is I always just play my 7-iron, so I went out and bought clubs all at the same length. It totally screwed my game up for the first part of this summer, and now I'm playing better golf than I have in 30 years, because if I pull out my wedge, it's a little bit longer than your normal wedge, and I'll bring it back, and I was stubbing it all the time because it was longer than my other wedge. But now I realize, I go, just do your 7-iron swing, and there's your wedge. And then the same thing with a 5-iron. Just do your 7-iron. It's a shorter 5-iron, so I was topping it at first. But now I've gotten used to it. So, I mean, it is an innovation on golf, and that is what Liv is doing. They are taking that risk.
This is the Jed School of Golf. Today, if you'll follow Jed's professional advice on using a 6-iron all the way around, or 7-iron all the way around the green, he can show you how you can save close to $1,000 on clubs.
Yep.
Probably the same in golf balls because you can't hit it as far.
Very rarely lose one.
And be invited to be on the Live tournament schedule with your skill.
I went out one time, a guy named Matt Metagetti. He played basketball for Lake Central here, but he's a college golfer. I believe, now that I think about it, at the same college, Carthage College, that AJ Preboy, who's sitting out there right now, talking just a little bit too loudly that we can hear him on our background noise. But he was a golfer there. And so I got there's a group of people that will play Jed golf, and we bring him out, and he comes out with a 7-iron, right? So most of the guys I play with are a little bit older, and their 7-irons are going to go 150, right? And used to be an 8-iron or even a 9-iron from 150, but now I'm comfortable. I don't have to overswing and hit a 7-iron 150. This guy comes out, and I'll never forget it at Wicker Park. He's 220 yards out, right? And he's up against, I don't know if you know the creek on number 1 at Wicker Park. And he's right there, and that is 220 yards. And he pulls his 7-iron out, and he hits it, and he just pinches it nice. And that ball rolls up on the green from 220 yards out. And I'm like, yeah, this is different. You can't use a 7-iron because if you're playing at dusk I play all winter long, so because then there's nobody on the course, I just walk it briskly. You don't get that cold. And he I had to pull him back to a 9-iron. I go, you need to go about 150, at the most 180, because then you can't see the ball and you just have to never look for a ball. But if you're hitting at 220, you're going to be looking, it's going to go out, and so the visual is part of it. But back to risk. And
wait a second, I have to just stop for a second.
Sure.
There is one thing I have to admit to you about traditional golf that I think, televised golf, that I think is wrong. And that is to take these guys when they hit a certain age and not let them begin to ride in a cart, age-adjusted cart access. Because if they still have the skill to play at that level but just get more tired because they're older and can't walk that 18 every time, give them at least an equalizer, and the equalizer is the cart. They still have to play the same clubs, the same length holes, everything else. They just get transportation assistance.
That's coming.
I hope so, because I hate to see some of these top-level guys. Just like watching this past weekend, Justin Rose. It was just incredible. I mean, the guy's 40-some years old, 10 years, 20 years older than some of these kids.
He
got tired. How much? I mean, would he have done as well if you weren't tired? Maybe he gets better that way, but just a thought.
I don't know what their policy is there, but eventually maybe they'll have a senior live tour and you could ride. Phil Mickelson is on the live. He wasn't there yesterday to kind of hang around.
Well, Liv is letting him do it, right? At the older.
I don't even know. I never even thought about that. I'm just saying
the traditional.
I prefer to walk when I play. Like I'm going out and playing some elitist golf this weekend. And
going to Olympia or
no? Anyways to Central Indiana elitist golf, and everybody always drives, and I'm like, dude, man, can't we walk one of these times? There's nobody out here. It's not like we're getting pushed.
Yeah.
We're in the middle of nowhere, and can't we walk it? And then once in a while, like a couple of months ago, I did the same thing, and one of the guys is like, all right, I'll walk with you. And then the third dude's like, well, I guess I got to walk. So we played a threesome and walked, and I loved it. I feel much more in tune with the course and with nature and all that. Plus, I got a Fitbit here, baby, and it's all about the steps. You know what I mean? So, Will, here we've been doing this podcast for a while.
5 months?
5 months. And you were, I think, a little bit kind of looked askance, maybe slightly reluctant, like, what do I have to share with people that would be of value? And then you looked at me one time, you go, well, Jimmy, I kind of want you to understand some of these things. And I can personally say that, I come into this business and I want to screw around and I want to play jet golf, and I am probably not as serious about things as I should be. And then I kind of learned through this podcast and doing all these episodes with you that you can have focus and you can get things done and you can be a leader to all these young people in maybe a way that I need to pay a little bit of attention to. And you can do all of that without losing the ability to laugh and to have some fun. Does that make sense? There's a balance. I guess the balance that you're always talking about, I think I'm kind of starting to get it a little bit.
It's everything is choices. Our whole life is made up of choices. From the day you're born and you have impact on something you do, you have the ability to choose. And I just think that you can choose to be a mopey, sad type person, and go ahead. There aren't a whole lot of people who are going to want to spend a lot of time with you. You're not going to have the opportunity to meet some really interesting people, because most of the interesting people that I know, even if they're not high achievers, they know how to enjoy themselves and enjoy their life and everything. I mean, a lot of it is making statement. As an example today, I'm surprised you didn't pick up on this today, but this shirt I have on.
I see it.
Normally somebody would ask, what does the A stand for? Since I know your name is Will, your name is Glaros, You're a graduate of Indiana University. What the heck is an A on there for? It reminds me, I wear it laughingly really on a few occasions. It reminds me of excellence, because I bought this shirt at the University of Alabama going down to see what I thought was the greatest illustration in sports of excellence, and that was to watch a team put together by Nick Saban.
First of all, I thought it was Andrean, because you
could be with his colors.
Yeah, same color, same A, and all of that.
And that's excellence too.
You know, we don't talk a lot about excellence. I mean, we talked. We have in the first 5 months kind of really gone through Will's philosophy, and it boils down to the Limbwalkers creed. I won't go through all 10 of them, but you can get it if you go to find the Limbwalkers podcast on Apple, Spotify, wherever, and we have that. But excellence is something that I think you have talked about here with me socially and that kind of thing, and I like it too, man. And we had all these coaches in, and you could, when people are just trying to take everything that they have and make it as good as they could possibly get. That's what all these coaches are doing. Yeah. I have 60 players, and I got to find 11 that go out there, and I got to give the ball to one at a time, and we got to beat the other person trying to tackle us. And everybody's fighting, and they're trying to build their systems the best that they can. And to me, it's a beautiful thing. But it's also a beautiful thing on the individual level when people are trying to push themselves.
Yeah.
Like right now, there's 4 people that are listening to us out there that are doing their work, and they're just trying to do the best job that they can. And that really is a beautiful thing.
It is. There's no question about it. I think, we spend so much time, especially watching the boob tube in whatever form you watch it, and getting junk that really could, you have to be able to look at things like that and really understand it is just entertainment, that it's there for your immediate hype, and that's it, and then you're done with it and you go on. Or maybe there's some little thing in a movie that's a little crazy that syncs with you, and you realize you can use that to do something better. There's an idea you get for it, and maybe that's the only reason you watch that movie without even knowing it.
So give me an example of someone who has, either in one event or in their whole life, has achieved an excellence that you like.
An excellence that I like.
And it's going to take you a while to churn this through your gray-haired head, I could come up with one, and I'll give you one. One time I went to a concert of Crosby, Stills, Nash & Young at the United Center. I went with Peter Naw,
sure,
Danny Burns, and I don't know, somebody else. So 4 of us go up there, and because it's Naw, they're really nice seats, so we're not that far from the stage. And they go and they're playing their music, Almost Cut My Hair, and they're playing Cinnamon Girl, and then they play some of the Stephen Stills, Teach Your Children Well, which is a horrible song. But finally, the 3 put their instruments down, and they go stand around the piano, and they watch Neil Young do After the Gold Rush, which is Lying in a Burned Out Basement, and that's a beautiful song.
Yeah.
And you can hear it on your album, and you're like, oh, that's cool, or you hear it. It's not a bad song, I like it. But to hear him do it live with Crosby, Stills, and Nash standing around the piano, and they knew it, and we knew it, that Neil Young had hit a moment where it was all of the right elements came through. Of the actual song was beautiful, the performer was probably, I don't know, at the time he was maybe 63 years old or something like that. He's much older now. He was at the right age, he had done it enough times, and he had his friends sitting around the piano, and he did that song, and I'm like, wow, dude, every once in a while you see excellence in motion at the very top of the game, and you have to notice it and enjoy it. Maybe take a lesson or two from it if you must.
Yeah.
But you have to be able to recognize excellence when you see it.
You know, I'll tell you, interestingly enough, it's a musical comparison to that. My wife and I went with a couple of friends up to Wrigley to watch a concert put on by Elton John and Billy Joel. They did two separate...
Tanny's song. I saw him do it once, but...
I mean, you've got 40,000, 50,000 people in these stands. The whole field is covered with people all the way up to the stage. And Elton John comes out, and he gives kind of a half-aid performance. He just really wasn't that significant. And Billy Joel then, they had a little intermission. Billy Joel came out, and he tore the house down. I mean, he had everybody standing up. You could feel the stands vibrating. It was exciting. Then they came together to sing. And strangely enough, Elton John corrected his attitude or whatever was ragging him. And he came on that stage, and it was probably the best combination of music I have ever heard in an evening. You had two of the greatest. And when I realized really how great identified Billy Joel as, they just had a special they've done in the last month, and I watched it all the way through. The guy is incredible. What he's done, what he's accomplished, what he's been through. I mean, divorces, married. Well, who was the big Claudia Schiffer or something was his wife, and it just makes me almost speechless. He is incredible, and I always liked him. I just didn't know how much I liked him. It's the same thing. I had never watched any of the pieces. Interesting how music catches you with excellence. And it was listening and watching the movie about Queen.
Oh, yeah, Freddie.
Yeah, and Freddie Mercury has a voice. They think because of whatever that malfunction was in his throat or lips or whatever. But I was mesmerized by hearing him sing. And those songs, the words are just beautiful. I mean, those are two inspirations I can think of on the spot.
What about sports?
In sports, actually, I'll tell you what. I had a good friend in high school, Mike Edwards. I think the only high school All-American out of Munster High School. And watching Mike's natural talent as a football player, speed, responsiveness, identification, he was head and shoulders above everybody else on the field. And you could see it. And he's one of the people I've talked about so many times. I'm trying to think of the three types of people. You've got the person who's the natural. That was Mike. He was naturally gifted athlete. And then you've got the person who just needs to be nurtured, the nurtured person. And then you have the one who's just the wild man, doesn't listen to anybody, will probably never succeed, and in most cases don't. And you realize that you can look at somebody like Mike, and even though you may be one of those nurtured people that needs to be nurtured to learn how to do what he does naturally, you can do it. And I think those are the real miracles that are out there. The ones who aren't the naturally born, they incite everybody else to think, I can do better. And many times they end up being coaches, which Mike did. But it's that person who's the nurtured person who's willing to take the lessons and learn from either mistakes or past victories and push it to the next level and the next level and go further and further, the analogy being out on that limb, to realize you can accomplish more if you just believe you can.
You know, I never thought about this, but we both had the same football coach.
Yes, we did.
And you had him in his first year, right?
First four, I think.
Yeah, his first
year. Well, actually, sophomore, junior.
Yeah, his first year as a coach, because it was a brand new high school, Munster High School. And I had him in his last year, in his very last year. And, worked closely with him. So there's another example of excellence.
It is.
I think that by the time he got to us, and we're one of the top teams in the state, and playing in the state tournament, and what I learned from Coach John Friend, is basically project management and how to take what you have and then build it into something, and then build on your mission statement and what you're trying to accomplish, and then do all of these little things. Walking around. I used to make fun of him walking around with a clipboard. He had a clipboard no matter where he went. He'd come out to they had the chicken barbecue, and he'd have a clipboard in his hand. And then it got to the point, during the middle of the school day, he'd walk around with a clipboard in his hand. And it was I think it was just always, because it was always stuff he'd write down and planning. Yeah. But it was a lot of planning and a lot of strategic things that went in to all of a sudden they're sitting on a Friday night and it's 4th and 1 at the goal line. He knows what he's going to call, and he knows what the personnel is going to be in there. It's already written in the cards. Can we execute it? I don't know. But that was excellence to me also.
Oh, I think you're right. John Friend, I would hate to imagine, actually I'd like to know the number of young men that he impacted in a positive way with his examples of living right. Here's a guy who, was he 87 when he died, 88? He still had that flat top. He was so consistently summer white shoes all the time, year round, flat top. And that's what everybody jokingly called him. When he was walking away from you on the field, you'd go, I wonder what Flat Top's coming up with now. But it was a pure respect because he had taught you how to win, especially when you were supposed to be just a little small school that wasn't going to be able to do anything, and kept proving, he and Leroy, that year after year they could make this a winning place to be with attitude. Because certainly we didn't have anywhere near the pool of people to pick from to get monsters of the Midway on the line and jackrabbits at every, running in the backfield every year consistently.
Well, there's an example of a Limbwalker, and I remember I interviewed Coach Friend before he died several times. And one of the things that he kept going back to was a moment where he had to decide whether to leave a really good assistantship with Bernie Kruger, who was a legendary football coach at Hammond High School in Hammond, Indiana. And then would he take this job as a young coach in a new high school that doesn't even have a program, and he's like, it didn't make any sense, but he's like, Bernie Kruger said, this might not be a good job, might not be a bad idea. So he walked out on the limb, and he started to build this up, and I know you guys weren't very good at first. But
actually, our first year, before we did our first varsity year, the first year, I think we were undefeated. Nobody beat us.
As a JV team.
Then the next year, which was my second year, we had undefeated until we met Crown Point. We lost the last two games of the year to Crown Point and to Gary Wirt, who was the mythical state champion that year, and we lost 20-7 to them. And the year after that, my senior year, we were 3-5.
So I knew, maybe it wasn't the first couple. I knew at some point that there had been some stumbling blocks. And Coach Friend said, man, I started to second guess my opinion or my decision of leaving, because then Bernie Kruger left and he could have been the coach at Hammond High, but he stayed with Munster and he built it into a dynasty. And that is an example of excellence. And you have taught me plenty of things about planning and strategy and having patience. Part of, I think, what, I'm trying to build this sports network, and there is some major frustration and angst and just working long hours. And it has allowed me to realize that sometimes you got to work yourself through those issues. And luckily, we're going into a football season where we're doing pretty well. But for a while there, when we started this podcast, we started the podcast right about the time I was having existential doubts about why the hell we're putting so much work and effort and resources into this. And you opened it up, say, hey, if you're doing the right thing, you are following a path and your goals, and you follow some of the things of the Limbwalker creed, you can be successful.
How much, let me ask you a question, how much of where you see this station going, or this effort, do you write down?
I'm a journaler, and I've been a journaler since I was 17 years old, and I write it all down.
And how many times do you look at it?
Very rarely.
You should look at it every day. If there are goals that you want to achieve, we'll go through that one time. I don't think here it is. This is the science of success.
Now, we got to end this because
and this is not mine.
And we got to end this. We're going to talk about the science of success, and I think this is the part. I'm a slacker. I went to Berkeley. I don't want any structure on my life, but I do believe that Will has brought something to my attention, and hopefully you are getting a little bit of this, is that it's pretty simple. If you can just concentrate on where you want to go, that you can somehow just, whether it is subconsciously or whatever, you could push yourself towards that, or better yet, the goal can pull you that direction. And I don't know why I kind of start to believe that, but here's where I want to be, and you have to decide on that, and you have to commit to it.
It's got to mean enough to you that you're willing to do anything to get there.
And that you have to do that. You have to visualize it. You have to set that goal, and that is what I've always shied away from. I think that you just need to be able... I always thought that if you had goals, it shut you out to things that were around you that you could react to and that you could use as resources.
Well, you could still use them. They're there. They're on the table for you to use if you think they're viable to help you succeed. But it's having that goal out there. You'll find the way to get there. If you think about it, you dream about it, you surround yourself with the right people, you get good at what you do, you enhance your skills to get there, whatever it may be, you can get there. You just have to write it down to the point that it just saturates your brain with nothing can happen but this. Most people, they write a goal down and they put it away somewhere and say, I'll check that in 2 years, see if I got there. No. You should be checking that every day. And I can give you examples next time of things I've written down that I wanted to achieve and get done that have gotten done that most people would have said could never have been done.
He's Will Glaros. This is the Limbwalkers podcast. We actually have recorded this one live on AM 1230 and 1047 in the TuneIn app on at our studios on the campus of Purdue Northwest. Please go to Limbwalkers podcast, anywhere you get your podcast. Adriana Alvarez runs the podcast network here, and she has put together a number of good podcasts on the WJOB podcast network. Thanks, Will. Next time, we already know what the next one is. We need to talk a little bit more about, you call it the science of success. I wish we could come up with a different name for that.
Let me tell you, I just wrote that down because it's not mine. I've taken it, I've used it. It was actually developed by Napoleon Hill. And at the request of Andrew Carnegie, who wanted to study why he was as successful as he was. And as I've said on so many shows, I'm not some person who's developed all these ideas. I've just used them. They were developed way back when. Other people, and if you use these proven ways to succeed or to be happy, to enjoy your life, you can have a happy, great life too.
He's Will Glaros. I'm Jim Diedlow. Until next time, we'll see you later.
This has been Limbwalkers podcast, coming to you from the JED TV studios on the campus of Purdue Northwest in Hammond, Indiana. Thank you for listening.